Alright guys, today we're starting chapter 5 here with our sum and difference identities. So take a second and pause the video and write these down. So what we have here is sum and difference identities for sine and cosine. Basically, in a nutshell, they allow you to find more exact values for a broader range of angle measures, not just the 30 to 60 or the 45 that we've been using. So here I set our basic identities. Now down here we define sine and cosine, or define sine or tangent. There are a couple ways you can do it. There is a separate tangent equation, but one way to kind of simplify the process is you can also just, from knowing that tangent is sine over cosine, you can set it up where if you've already found the sine of a plus b and the cosine of a plus b, then you could just divide those to find the tangent of a plus b. And likewise, you could do the same thing for tangent of a minus b. If you have the sine of a minus b, oops, that's terrible, a minus b, over the cosine of a minus b. Alright, so once again, allows us to find more angle measures. Here's a strategy. I like to have the unit circle out so I can look at the numbers that I can work with and see what exactly I could use to add or subtract to get the angle measure I'm looking for. So, for example, here I want to use sine of 75. So what I want to do is look at this unit circle, and I want to figure out what angle measures I could add or subtract to get to 75. So I'm looking through here, I see a 30 and a 45. Well, that would add to 75. So I'm going to do sine 30 plus 45. Alright. Move that guy back out of the way. So the equation I'm using for that is right here, sine of a plus b. So I'm going to plug in my values. In this case, it's just knowing the equation and plugging it in. Make sure you're not replacing sine of a with 30. You're replacing with whatever the sine of 30 equals. So you're going to have the sine of 30 cosine of 45 plus the cosine of 30 sine of 45. So then the sine of 30 is a half times the cosine of 45, which is root 2 over 2, plus the cosine of 30, which is root 3 over 2, times the sine of 45, which is root 2 over 2. Hopefully by now you know those values, as if you don't, that unit circle becomes your best friend. So your root 2 over 4 plus root 6 over 4, and then you just write that as root 2 plus root 6 all over 4. And that would be your answer. So the tricky part here is just you have to identify what angle measures add up to your original one. You replace the a's and the b's in your equations with those angle measures. Use the unit circle to find the exact values, and then you just do the basic math. That's the process that we're using here. So let's look at a couple more. Ooh, a pi over 12. Okay. So you can either put this in terms of degrees, or let's see. Use it. So put it in terms of degrees, or if you're good with radians, you could look at, we'll get you pi over 12. Most of you guys probably don't want to put it in terms of degrees. So if you did that, you could use the conversion. You would find that that would be the same as 15. So what here adds up to or subtracts to 15 degrees? Well, we could look at the 45 and the 30. So that would equal the cosine of 45 minus 30. Okay? So then the equation we want to use there, shrink that guy, we want to use this equation. So the cosine of 45 minus 30, so this is my A, that's my B. So I'm going to have the cosine of 45 cosine of 30 plus sine of 45 sine of 30. Alright, so then let's see, let's move this guy out of the way. So now we'll use our unit circle. We're plugging in the values. So the cosine of 45, hopefully you remember, is root 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 would be root 3 over 2. Sine of 45 is root 2 over 2. And the sine of 30 is 1/2. So then you simplify this and you get root 6 over 4 plus root 2 over 4. They already have a common denominator, so you get root 6 plus root 2 all over 4. So that's the basics, solving for these equations. Alright, so a tangent of 105. So this one's a multi-parter here. So first thing we're going to want to do, what adds up to 105? Hopefully, look at the unit circle. You would see that it's the sine. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself, sorry. So hopefully you would know that that's the tangent. Oh, come on. Tangent of 60 plus 45. So then that would equal a sine of 60 plus 45 over the cosine of 60 plus 45. So in this instance, you're going to want to break this up into two parts. Before we finish this equation, we're going to want to find the sine of 60 plus 45 over here. We're going to find the cosine of 60 plus 45 over there. So go ahead, try solving for those, pause the video, and when you unpause it, you'll see the answers. Alright, so here's where it gets complicated. So, found sine of 60 plus 45, cosine of 60 plus 45, with those answers here. So then we have a fraction and a fraction, which we don't want. So what I did is I multiplied by the reciprocal of the bottom one, and you cancel out the 4s, and you're left with this in blue. Problem is now you have radicals at the bottom. So in this case, we're going to use the difference of squares and use its conjugate, which is root 2 plus root 6. So that way when you FOIL it out, you get root 2 times root 2, which is root 4, plus root 12 minus root 12 minus 6. So you end up with just a 2 minus 6 on the bottom. You FOIL the top, you get root 12 plus 6 plus 2 plus root 12. Combine like terms, simplify the radical, and then you cancel a negative 4 from both. 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. 4 root 3 divided by negative 4 is negative root 3. So that is your solution. Those are a little bit time consuming. So take a second and go back over, look through this one again. And it takes a little bit of time. Alright, here if I want to recompose this into one single trig function, what I'm looking at, so identify the equation, it goes sine, cosine, cosine, sine. So this is sine. Since it's a minus in there, it's a sine of A plus B, because they're opposites. So then A is 153, B is 27, so that would be the sine of 153 plus 27, which equals the sine of 180, which hopefully by now you guys would know to be equal to 0. Alright, that concludes today's lesson. There's the homework assignment, so you can start working on it as well. We'll keep working on this in class. Hope everything works out.